Now we take up the discussion, short duration discussion on the national education policy. Sri Sitaram Yechury to initiate.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm initiating a debate which I consider it has a very, very grave implications for our entire future and the potential of our country, to realize the potential of our country. Education policy or the education system is the foundation which defines the character of a country. It defines the character of a nation. When we, the people, gave ourselves this constitution, we defined the character of the Indian Republic as a secular democratic republic. That is the values and the character that the education system should nurture and should strengthen, number one. Number two, the education policy has got to do with... Sir, will you please stop the
No, please.
interministerial consultations?
Please. Sit down and talk. No, please. No, please. Okay, you proceed.
Secondly, sir,
Proceed.
the education policy also defines the manner in which we are able to realize the potential of our country. And that potential is got directly related to the demographic dividend that we have today. 54% of our country's population is below the age of 25. And if this youth is properly nurtured, properly educated, properly and given a healthy life, and employment opportunities are created, nobody can stop India from becoming a better India than what we have today. And that potential that is inherent in us, to realize that, the education policy is got a very important bearing. So keeping this in mind, sir, instead of strengthening the character of our country as enshrined in our constitution, a secular democratic republic, what we have in this draft that has now been circulated by the HRD, this draft actually contains a prescription for, I would say, 3 C's. That is centralization, commercialization, and communalization. And these 3 C's are the running thread of this entire draft, if you examine it. And this potential that I'm talking of today cannot be achieved unless you have a universalization of education. Briefly, sir, go back to the history of all the developed countries in the world today. There's not a single developed country in the world today where the school education is not universal, where you do not have neighborhood schools. Our NRIs who go to the USA, they'll have to send their children to the neighborhood school by law. And unless you have that universalization of education, go back to the foundations of the United States of America, since you are so fond of that country. Thomas Jefferson, when he was the president, he had the vision of the rising bourgeoisie. At that point of time, there was a whole debate on public education versus why should government spend so much money on education. There was one Reverend Washington, not to be confused with the Washington of the president, a Reverend Washington who argued powerfully that instead of we will be spending more money in recruiting sergeants to control the law and order of the uneducated youth. Educating them was not merely to develop the country, but also a policy of social control and cohesion. Thus was born the public education system there. Look at England, look at France, look at all these countries, Japan. Unless you have a universalized education system, we cannot have a proper development, and the potential that our country has today cannot be achieved. That is why we had the RTE. I remember the minister then is here. We had long arguments there. Establish your neighborhood schools. We said a school in every habitation. That was the objective, to reach there. We also went through the schools that have only a single teacher. Some no teachers, some no buildings, some no blackboards. Now, how can we develop and achieve our potential, sir, realize our potential if this is the state? What happened to the RTE Act? How is it being implemented? Is there any review that has ever been done by the government? That we are, it is in a completely directionless situation that we are in today, and on top of that comes this education policy. We have today, sir, unfortunately, one of the lowest literacy levels in the world. Officially, we say that 86% of our youth, that is 15 years and above, are literate. And below that, you say they are only 69.3%. That is a very, very disturbing thing. At lower ages, your literacy rate is lower. But then even what are the standards of that literacy? We have seen, you have been reading the newspapers, we have all been reading. Class 8 students can't do a simple mathematical addition. What they know, we have had cases where people who have topped the school examinations, it has all been found out to be fraud. And that happened through cheating.
There is no real examination. It is all pass.
Or
That is
not
the whole.
possible. So, sir, you know the standards of that education. Even with this low literacy rates, the standards are also abysmal. We went through this, sir, after independence. Our distinguished honorable first chairman of this August House, Dr. Radhakrishnan, he headed a commission on higher education. We had the Kothari Commission, which went through the foundations of the entire school education and made recommendations which have not been implemented till date. You had the Mudaliar Commission on technical education. Our objective was to create an economy of self-reliance, where our independent growth and development of Indian science and development and technology would take us to much greater heights. These were the first 3 commissions that came after independent India. I'm sorry to say till today, the most singular recommendation that all of them have made, that we cannot achieve even part of what we are recommending unless you spend 6% of your GDP on education. We have not done that till date. We have not done that till date, and that needs to be done. This education policy, unfortunately, much of that is not really reflected in this draft education policy that has been circulated. So in the Indian conditions, what is to be acquired in our education system? There is a triangle between which we have to build a balance between quality, between quantity and equity. Quality, quantity and equity. That triangle, how you balance that, that defines our education, the strength of our education system and its potential in actually creating the character of our people and the character of the country, and also allowing us to realize our own potential. And in all these 3 aspects, what do we see today? Instead of going for a balance between these 3, what we have today is an unbridled privatization. 62% of our students today in higher education are in private institutions. School education, there are reports that government schools are saying there are no students, therefore it's being closed down. Why are there no students? Quality of education there. The teachers, are they even paid or not? The commercial shops that are coming up in the name of education today is become all pervasive. And what are we training, sir? Are we training for knowledge? Or are we creating instruments that can be used in the productive process? Which is correct. They should be used in the production process. Education should be job related. But is that all the meaning of education? That character building, that whole question of creating a level of enlightenment, all that seems to be lost in this draft. There's no mention about many of these aspects. And this, instead of creating a balance between quantity, quality and equity, what we have today, this draft itself admits, is greater disparities. There are regional disparities, there are social disparities, and one figure that the draft itself gives, that the GER, that is called the gross enrollment ratio, in higher education, was 8.4% in the state of Jharkhand and 53% in the Union Territory of Chandigarh. These are your regional imbalances. And what is your social imbalances? Of the people in higher education who went in there, 22.7% only are girls. Only 22.7%. You have, for the SCs and STs, a reservation policy. Much of that is not really being implemented as you reach higher levels of education. The percentage keeps falling. So you have, instead of equity an inequity that is developing in our system today. And on top of it, if the government continuously abdicates from its responsibility, what does this education policy here say? I quote from it. It says, instead of setting up new institutions which require huge investments, priority of the government will be to expand the capacity of existing institutions. Expanding capacity is what requires funds as well. And if you really want to truly expand facilities, there's very marginal difference between setting up a new one and expanding the existing ones. But if you argue that we have no funds, therefore we won't do it, and therefore privatize, what is happening? These commercial shops are coming up, and we have seen what sort of education that they are delivering. So instead of this, what we have today is this sort of a centralization that is coming up. And here I want to bring to the notice of this august House and through you to the government that this education policy draft that was circulated is actually a complete lift from a straight lift from the RSS document presented at the international conference on the new education policy at Amarkantak on the 12th, 13th and 14th of July. This is the facsimile of that. And the education policy draft, this is the facsimile of that. This is the exact lift of this RSS document. The communalization that I was talking about, centralization, commercialization and communalization. This is the communalization, sir, that is taking up where the bottom of the pyramid of these 4 stages, the bottom is what is called your Vedic worldview or Vedic education. I'll come back to the Vedic education point a little later. But the question is, you're talking of today, the 21st century, you're talking of an emerging India, you're talking of India becoming a global power, you're talking of India attaining much greater heights. And instead of modernizing your thing according to your present technological levels in our country, where are you taking this country to and what are you attempting to teach? You are converting the study of history into the study of Hindu mythology. You are converting the study of Indian philosophy, a very rich tradition of Indian philosophy. You are converting that study of Indian philosophy, instead of developing it further, you are reducing it to Hindu theology. History is mythology. Your philosophy is your theology. What is the future that you have today? And if this is what you want to do, and on top of this are recommendations about administration of institutions of higher education. We have seen what happened with JNU. We have seen what happened in the Hyderabad Central University, and where the Dalit students are targeted for attack. We have seen Allahabad, we have seen Jadavpur. Now you see the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Bombay. You've seen the IIT in Chennai. You've seen the Film Institute. What is this government doing today, sir, with this entire process of communalization of education that is taking place? Can you reduce our students today in university to saying that they're anti-national? Remember, sir, when we became independent, the first Prime Minister of this country went to his alma mater, that is the Allahabad University, for a convocation. And in that convocation address, he defines what is a university, what is the vision of modern India after we became independent. I quote Jawaharlal Nehru. He says, a university stands for humanism, for tolerance, for reason, for the adventure of ideas, and for the search of truth. It stands for the onward march of human race towards even higher objectives. If universities discharge their duties adequately, then it is well with people and the nation, unquote. If universities can discharge their responsibilities adequately, it's well with the country and the nation. How are we treating these universities? That administration of universities, the University Grants Commission that is there, wants to be replaced by what is called an Education Commission or some collection of individuals who will keep advising the government. The whole structure of administration of higher education, school education, technical education, that is being revamped in order to centralize it. And remember, education is in the concurrent list. That moved to the concurrent list during the period of internal emergency. It was a state subject earlier. And without consultation of all these states that are involved, this sort of a centralization that is taking place is something that is unacceptable. So therefore, sir, this emphasis on Vedic education that you were talking of. Fine, sir, but please understand, we have Aryabhattas, we have tremendous advances in our ancient civilizational sciences. We are the ones who discovered the value of zero. I've said this once before. Somebody has written a book, a French intellectual, calling zero the biography of a dangerous idea. Charles Seif. I've quoted this earlier. I really seriously recommend it should be read. What is dangerous in the sense, just think of it, they conceive of nothingness, conceive of the void. And in conceiving that void, our Greeks who developed the entire geometry, the Euclidean geometry, they were aghast. They actually campaigned against the zero, saying that there can be nothing called a zero, because on the left side of the zero, if you go into the numerical order, it becomes minus. How can you have minus 1 foot of land? How can you have minus 2 feet of land? But we gave that conception that zero is zero, but zero can never exist independently. Zero can only exist if it coexists with the infinite, the infinity. And that is the genesis of your calculus. That's the genesis of your calculus, where you tend to zero at one end, you tend to infinity on the other. And sir, we gave this to the world. But then, why did all this stop after the 6th century AD? Think about it. When the re-emergence or the reassertion of the Brahminical order came up here, that universality of education that allowed the flowering of such ideas, that was all confined into your caste system. Ekalavya, a classic example, that you cannot have educated people belonging to the lower caste. Once you restrict that, once you bring in a disorder, a social disorder in terms of knowledge, growth, and accessibility, you get restricted. And that is exactly what happened. All the advances that we have made in our ancient past mainly have been when the reigning religion was Buddhism, which gave greater tolerance and greater universality. Once you bring back this caste-oriented order, you restricted that, and that is exactly what wants to be resurrected today. In the name of Vedic knowledge and Vedic mathematics, and in the process of this commercialization, privatization, etc., you are restricting the access of education. If the 60-odd crores of youth, or 80-odd now, with our population growing, if all of them are exposed to this knowledge, all of them have the accessibility to this knowledge, then, sir, nobody can stop my country from becoming the leader of the knowledge society of the world. But this education policy denies us that opportunity. And that is why I say, please, learn from the past, and go through the entire, if you want to go through the education of, history of education, you start with Vedic knowledge, Vedic training, Gurukuls, and then you come to Macaulay's, post-Macaulay. In between, you have a wealth of these things for 3 centuries, no, if not 4. 4 centuries, you have the Kushan Dynasty, from Central Asia to China, Kanishka, was emperor of that Kushan Dynasty. What happened in those 4 centuries? What was all that was accumulated by us? What happened subsequently? The Mughal education system, the Macaulay's education system, creating men who think like the English, who will eat and have those social habits so that the demand for the English products can grow, and create people who can run this country for England, for their power and for their accumulation of capital, for their industrial revolution. This country, sir, from this place, Britain controlled from Aden in Africa to Auckland in New Zealand. That whole empire was run by us. I mean, all this was product of that education system. We have inherited all that. Now change it for the better. So don't go back to the hark back to the old values. Imbibe the best of all of that. Imbibe the best of all of that, but be modern and please go ahead. And if you want Vedic knowledge, let me give you one example, sir, before I end. I hope many of you would have read the Chandogya Upanishad. If you have not read that, I recommend that you read the Chandogya Upanishad. In Chandogya Upanishad, there is a character called Alladi. Alladi, a Brahmin, he sends his son to a Gurukul. And the son comes back after 12 years of education and training. And after he returns, the father asks the son, "Son, what have you learned?" Then the son explains through shlokas, "I've learned about the equation and the equation between the Atman and the Brahman." And he said, "What is that equation? Between the micro and the macro, the Atman and the Brahman, between the zero and the infinity. What is that relationship?" The son goes on explaining through various shlokas. The father says, "I have not understood anything. If this is what you want to obfuscate this knowledge," so the son says, "Then how can I make you understand? Because you have not learned all this Sanskrit Vedas and all that." So the father says, "I'll tell you how to understand." Chandogya Upanishad gives these entire records. And the father tells the son, "You bring a bowl of water, you get me a crystal of salt, put that crystal of salt in the water, and let us go to bed." In the morning, he picks up that bowl of water and asks the son, "Where is the crystal of salt?" The son says, "The salt is dissolved naturally." So the father says, "Drink from this side of the cup." What is the taste? Salty. Drink from the other side, salty. Drink from this side, salty. Drink from the center, salty. So he says that is the relationship between the Atman and the Brahman. We are part of the indivisible, the unity of opposites. What dialectics teaches us, that this is an integral whole. And that knowledge to an illiterate father who did not go through the Gurukul is there, and you want to deny that knowledge and put everybody back into the Gurukul and come back with Vedic hymns which don't explain anything. Huh? so therefore, sir.
Yeah. And Upanishad.
Why, sir? As a communist leader, I talk of the zero and the infinity.
Yeah.
I talk of the Atman and the Brahman. I talk of the unity of the opposites. I talk of dialectics of nature, which is the basis of communism, sir.
Yeah.
So this is integral to us. This is integral to us.
And having
you please understand that.
also having read Upanishads.
Huh?
Yeah.
No, sir. हम तो यार हम तो एक ही बात कह रहे हैं सर, हमारा नाम लो, अगर हो सके गाली भी दो, हमें कोई इतराज नहीं, लेकिन जितने बार नाम लेके गाली दोगे पुण्य आपका ही होगा। नाम तो लेना ही होगा। तो सर भाई यही कह रहा हूँ कि इसके बारे में थोड़ा गंभीरता से सोचिए। प्लीज, आई एम सॉरी, please let us deal with this subject which is very central to the future of our country and our people. And please deal with it. Yes, sir. Please deal with it with the seriousness that is required. Do not toy around with this. Yes, foreign universities coming, what will be? Sir, please remember, all these things that we are doing today, ISRO, we congratulate with you passing the resolution and reading it out from there every day, we thump the desk, are all genuine homemade products, sir. They are all homemade products. From our former President of India to Dr. Monsoon Singh to Mr. Chidambaram to Mr. Kapil Sibal to the leader of the house to me, we are all homemade people. Do not denounce us like that, saying that there's only a greatness that comes with your foreign thing. Yes, frontier technologies, cooperate with them. Yes, start your centers with these foreign universities if there are areas where we can advance. But do not open it. We fought, sir, I was part of the official Indian delegation to the UNESCO 60th anniversary, where the debate was on whether to treat education as a commodity, as a service that can be traded as a commodity. And the question of foreign universities came. The government of that day opposed it. Why? They opposed it because the courses that you cannot teach in your own country, you want to bring them here. They wanted to bring witchcraft. Harry Potter was very famous then. He still is, I suppose. But witchcraft and wizardry, etc., they wanted to bring it into our country. Why? So be careful in all these matters that are going on, and therefore stop this reckless privatization, centralization, commercialization, and communalization of education. And please do that for heaven's sake, otherwise we are bequeathing to our progeny not an India they deserve. We can rise to much greater heights. The education policy is the backbone that defines the character and the future potential of our country. So therefore keep that in mind. And therefore, before finalizing, I'm requesting through you to the Honorable Minister to please consider these points that I've raised. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Minister want to say something? Yeah, please.
Only 1 minute.
Yeah, please.
Let me just explain, because this is very important debate. And this is not a draft policy approved by the cabinet or government. These are inputs collected through various consultation process and a report under TSR Subramanian Committee that is also for evolution of national education policy. So before going to cabinet, we have come to you. Thank you.
Okay. That means your input will be put into this. Yeah.
Sir, with your permission.
Please.
Sir, Minister has just referred to the committee, says these are the draft inputs and the TSR Subramaniam Committee report. From the best of my understanding, sir, with due respect, Mr. TSR Subramaniam is not an educationist. And if the Minister will explain, does the committee have even one educationist in it? If it does not have, then what is
In
it?
my answer, sir.
You can say it in the answer. Now, Sri Kapil Sibal.
He is referred to as education.
Sri Kapil Sibal.
Responded. I will only request him to treat what I've said here today also as an input.
Yeah, that I already
Please
said.
treat that also.
Yes, that will be input, including your Upanishad quote.